Okay, quick. How many of you have actually heard of Rider? Are using it? Played with it remotely? Okay. Nothing we do is free. Do you see? That already made him leave. Well, it might be free. As my friend says, nothing is free. It's just been prepaid, right? So no, it's not going to be free. At least no plans.
Cheaper than Visual Studio?
That's not very hard. It's going to be faster than Visual Studio. That's a good point. It's going to be smaller than Visual Studio. So I installed Visual Studio the other day. It was a 25 gigabyte download. No, something like whatever download, and then it said it requires 25 gigabytes to install. Right? The download is 300 megabytes, and the install is 300 megabytes. Okay, so welcome, Rider Tips and Tricks. I'll give you a quick overview of what it is for those that aren't familiar with it, and then we'll dive into actually what the purpose of this session is about. If you're playing with it, or if you want to play with it, get the most out of it, especially coming from an environment that's somewhat different to what you're accustomed to. Any of you have ever used any of our other tools? IntelliJ and stuff, right? WebStorm. So the great part is that everything I'll teach you here today, you'll be able to use for the other stuff as well. So you'll pick up tips and tricks on that as well. Okay? That's where you write up. That's where you sign up. It's called a private EAP because we just want your names. But then everyone gets access to it. This is what it looks like. And what is it? For now, it's a code name. It might be the definitive name. It's cross-platform.NET IDE, not just C#. It's built on the IntelliJ platform, which is an open source platform on which other people have also built, such as Android Studio. The backend is ReSharper, and it's written in Kotlin and C#. If you're not familiar with Kotlin, that's our programming language for the JVM, open source. It's very familiar. It's very similar to C#. So if you're doing any JVM stuff, look into that as well, because coming from C#, it's really nice. Is it using Roslyn? No, it does not, and it will never use Roslyn. Okay? Same reason that ReSharper doesn't use Roslyn, because Roslyn doesn't fit our needs. It doesn't have what we need, and there's no reason for us to rewrite our own Roslyn that we've been developing for the past decade to use something that is not suitable for our requirements. But what is the architecture? So we've got .NET over here talking to IntelliJ platform, which is built on JVM. And basically, you have ReSharper kind of like as a service on this side. And then you have Rider on that side. And all that this is doing is just like all the heavyweight is being done by this side. So the front end is basically a dumb client that all it's doing is just sending requests back and forth and drawing those requests in the UI. Okay, so we use a very lightweight protocol, custom protocol. Initially, we were using protocol buffers, but then it turned out to be not suitable for our needs. So we invented our own, and we keep deltas, and it's a two-way. It's completely mutable, contrary to what every functional developer will tell you. It is completely mutable, and we're proud of it. And there's like representation on both sides of it. Okay? Things happen in a very short time, 20 milliseconds, right? And in that 20 milliseconds, I'll tell you what happens under the covers just to get an idea. Now, why is it based on an IntelliJ shell? Because of all this. We have all of this, right? We've got, version control, favorites, themes, anything you can think of as an IDE we already have on this platform. So it makes very little sense for us to create a new platform or a new UI around all of this functionality. What is a protocol? It's lightweight and fast, because I would never put there it's heavyweight and slow. It can operate with mutable objects that are shared on both sides. It is written in Kotlin, and only the UI is being transferred, as I mentioned. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that when I press Alt-Enter, the backend is going to send some information, the front end is going to send some information to the back end. The back end is going to prepare all of the possible options that would be available on Alt-Enter on that section of the code, and then it's going to send that back to the front end, and the front end is going to display it. And when you select one of those options, it's going to say to the back end, this is the option that was selected. Go do whatever you need to do with the code, and tell me what code I have to write on the front end. Okay? But that's quite fast. It sounds very slow, but it's quite fast. It's sharing ReSharper. So which one is ReSharper? Which one is Rider? Can you tell? Top one is ReSharper. Bottom one is Rider. But they're sharing everything, right? In fact, 99%, like already that's actually outdated. It's kind of like 2,000 inspections are already available because we haven't rewritten anything from scratch. We're using everything that's available already in ReSharper. So all of this information is already available. And it's 99% ReSharper code, right? That's not entirely accurate. It could be maybe 95%. So what that means is that the majority of the time that we're spending right now is creating the UI aspects to be able to interact with the backend. Okay? That's it. That's all I have. So any questions? What's ReSharper? ReSharper is a plugin for visual. What is ReSharper written in? F#. No, I'm just kidding. Some would wish. No, it's written in C# with places in VB.NET, just for the fact that we need to dog food. Someone needs to use VB. And also, I think there were parts in C++, managed C++. I don't think there are any more. So it's pretty much C# code. Okay? Right. So what I'll do is, this is monocecil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some tips around like navigation and getting into the IDE, then how to kind of focus around editing, then some code analysis stuff, some refactoring, some code generation, code assistance, and then some other things. Okay? Please feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions, etc. Also, I'm using a plugin, which is, so we already have plugins, right? You can see that we already have a whole bunch of plugins because, again, it's the part of the IntelliJ platform. So I'm using a plugin which is called Presentation Assist, which basically what it does is every time I press a keyboard, it shows it on the screen. Okay? So that way you don't have to say, what keyboard did you press? It's also very good when you're doing pair programming because that way they won't interrupt you and say, what did you do? So you can just see it there. I'm also using the default Mac OS X layout, which basically means that if I want to go to a type, I press Command O. If you come from ReSharper, normally that would be Control N. I recommend that if you're using any of our IDEs, probably worth switching keyboard mappings. I went from the Visual Studio to IntelliJ. However, having said that, we are providing keyboard mappings for ReSharper users. So if you're coming from Visual Studio, you'll be able to use those same keyboard mappings. Okay? Any questions? Yes? So Hadi is asking, he's called the same as me, if it runs any Visual Studio add-ins. No. It runs ReSharper add-ins. So in principle, any plugin that you have for ReSharper will be able to work on Rider as well. And then you have the Rider platform plugins. The distinction is, if your plugin is going to be working with anything around the code semantics, knowledge of the code, you would probably write it as a ReSharper plugin, right? If it's going to just interact with the IDE in other aspects, like for instance, I don't know, version control and stuff like that, then it would be a plugin for the IDE, right? But if you go to Chrome, plugins.jetbrains.com, you can see that we already have like 1,825 plugins. Okay, we have everything. There's even a plugin that colors your code as the color of the rainbow. Don't know why someone would waste their time doing that, but apparently it's a good thing. Okay, so navigation, type specification. Notice how fast it is. You know, a lot of times people ask us, is ReSharper slow or is it Visual Studio that's slow? I'm not going to say which one, but you have your own judgment after this session. Okay? So type specification, you can see that I have camel case. and I can just do type specification, and that would take me to type specification. Okay, I can look up symbols, for instance. I could just do full name, and that would give me a list of all of the full names that are across the entire project. Now, again, if you're familiar with ReSharper, you're familiar with the namespace filtering with ReSharper. Yeah, so I can write, for instance, if I want to go to the full name inside the type specification, I don't have to sit and look through all of these. What I can do is use camel case and namespace filtering. So I could just do TS full name, and then that would take me to the full name inside that type specification. So it's namespace, class, and then the symbol name. Okay. I also have a structure window over here, so you can see the actual structure of the project, right? All of the properties, all of the methods. And one thing to note about pretty much anywhere in the IDEA platform is that you can actually search in all windows, right? So if I've got the focus on the structure window, if I say, for example, metadata or whatever metadata type, there you can see that it's allowing me to search through those two as well. Okay, and you can do that pretty much in any window on the IntelliJ platform. We also obviously have go to file, and again type name camel case, and I could do, for example, TDC 30, which would take me to line 30 of that file. Okay. Folders, it's kind of not working yet, but there will be support again for folders, so you can navigate to specific folders as well. And then you've got, of course, the project structure window, which is basically now in Rider, it's called the Solution Explorer. And here, again, I can do all sorts of searches. So, for instance, I could do buffer, etc., and that will also do searches for me inside there. Okay. Now, if you see, as I'm opening these different windows, you can see that one of the things that, does anybody actually notice anything? No tabs. So if you go to tabs, you do have actually editor tabs. The best thing you can do is switch them off, right? Tabs are probably the most useless piece of garbage that has ever been invented for navigation. And you don't need tabs. How many of you actually use tabs? Okay. So the only place you use tabs is in the browser, but there's a plugin which is called kind of like IntelliJ plugin for browsers that allow you to navigate fast as well. Don't use tabs. My recommendation is switch it off and then just use the navigation features of going to type, etc. And then you have two keyboard mappings, which is recent files, right, which allows you to quickly change between files, right? And in fact, if I alternate between two files, I can just hit Alt-Enter and it will switch back and forth. And then, of course, you have recent edits, right, which allow you to also do that navigation of going back and forth through recent edits. So, for example, if you're doing MVC controller view, you can just press Shift Command E and it will constantly change back and forth. Of course, you can also use the left square brackets and the right square brackets to also navigate back and forth between all of the different places that you've been, right? We don't have a navigation bar that I have it actually switched off. Before that, double shift, which is search everywhere, okay? So this is now, I've got it mapped to search everywhere. Sometimes you might, by default, if you use the ReSharper keyboard mappings on Rider, it will map it to Control T or Command T, right? And this basically allows me to do any kind of searches across anything. So I can, instead of distinguishing between go to type, go to file, go to symbol, I can just write whatever here, and then you can see that it shows me grouped by the type. So if I hit more here, you can see all of the types here, but let's say, for example, I do TS, I see recent files, I see classes, I see files, I see symbols, I see even actions, etc., right? And I can do, for example, navigation. And navigation is showing me the navigation bar, which is an actual option. And if I hit Enter, I can switch it on and off, right? So I can set settings directly from here as well, okay? Where is the navigation bar? It's dead. Oh, there you go. I usually have this switched off. Now, this is good because it allows me to do things like actually click on this and navigate through different files here. And in fact, I can even invoke the create new file directly, and it will do it in that context of where the folder is. But I usually have it switched off. And then if I want to bring it up, all you do is you just press the keyboard binding, which is in the case of Macs, Function Alt left, and then you can just bring it up in context wherever you are. Okay, so again, it saves you a little bit of space there at the top. Any questions so far? Is everything I've shown you already know? Yes.
It's worth pointing out the obvious, which would be Visual Studio and then running and this is running cross-platform.
Well, yeah. This is a Mac. So, yeah, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we've got out of the private users that we have. There's ironically there is most of them are using Rider on Windows, and says quite a bit. And then there's Mac users and there's Linux users as well. Okay, but all of this, like all the navigation, do you notice that it's fast or not? Yeah. So all of that is basically going constantly to the back end, front end, and all of doing those things. Okay. So type specification we're going to go to again. Type specification over here, and then I have, for instance, the navigate to menu, and from here I can do the, this is something that we brought onto the IntelliJ platform. They don't actually have the navigate to menu. So navigate to implementation, base symbol, find usages of symbol. There. I mean, it's blatantly fast. Okay, in terms of, it's fast in terms of speed, if that even makes sense. Okay. Alt Command B, that will give me derived types again. And again, on all of these, I can do searches, right? Every single menu that comes up, I can do searches on that. And, so back to the navigate to menu, I can do usages of symbol, derived symbols, extension methods, exposing IL code, etc. Because in fact, if I go, for instance, to, I don't know, let's go ahead and byte reference over here, byte reference. Well, that's value. Let's go to this. And we do, for instance, var s. I've been so long not writing C#, I don't even know how to anymore. String, and I can actually navigate to string. It has already .peak built in, so it does decompiling as well. Okay? Any other questions? You people really need to ask more questions. Yeah, I'm using actually the light background because it's much better for presentations. But you can actually say look and feel dark color, and it'll go dark, right? Look and feel light color, right? So I get the light thing. And in fact, we also have support for what do you call it? For font ligatures. So we did. Fonts. Oh, okay, I don't have it enabled. Hold on. Save as default copy. I say font, Fira code, enable font ligatures. So you saw that. And now I hit apply. Let's make it a little bit bigger. 17, apply. And you see that I get the nice little arrow. Okay? Because that is, these are the important things in our lives, not everything else. It's these things that matter, right? It's the little details, right? And all of the things around, I mean, we've seen in the navigate to menu, property definition, usages of symbol, related files. So for instance, if I'm doing MVC, I get the ability, I'll show you some MVC stuff later. You can do all of the related files, etc. on that as well. Okay, and then you have all of the gutter icons here, which allow you to also navigate to the derived types, etc. Okay. Now, what else do we have in terms of navigation? You have bookmarks. So I could do, for example, Shift Control and 5 and set a bookmark here, right? And then come here, for instance, and say Shift Control 7 and set another bookmark here. And then I can navigate back and forth to these bookmarks easily just using the keyboard as well. And I can see all of the bookmarks and do previews of those bookmarks without having to actually navigate to those things. Okay. Some things that aren't working right now, parameter info, for instance, is working. And there is also the ability to do what we call a quick definition. So for instance, if I'm in, let's go back to type specification here, for instance. And I want to go to type reference. Obviously, I can navigate to type reference. and then look at it and come back, or I can press Command Y, right? And this, in principle, when it works, it will show me inline definition of that type reference, not causing me to go, navigate back and forth. That doesn't work right now, but it will be working eventually at some point. Okay, so if you want to start writing code, where is this? Where's my arrow? If you want to start writing code, sometimes, like especially when people come to our, go away. When people come to the IDE, they kind of see all of these little windows everywhere, and you've got the project structure, and you've got the databases stuff, and etc. And you kind of basically are left with zero workspace. Okay, you can quickly kind of go back and forth in that mode by just pressing Shift Command F12. Okay, and that will take you back and forth, and it will provide you with the ability to always use the command with the numbers that are wrong here to kind of show the actual window that I want to go to. You can even hide this, the little tabs over here by pressing this button there, and that's completely hidden. Okay? If I want to get it back, just double-click the command, and I can get it back, and I can then see the numbers, or at any time I can just click on the mouse here and see all of the different entries. Okay? Try not to use the mouse. Just like with ReSharper, IntelliJ platform has been designed to avoid usages of mouse as much as possible. Okay? There's also what we call distraction-free mode, which basically what it does, it kind of like eliminates everything else. Doesn't shut down things like Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, but everything else it does. If you want something that does do that, it's called Focus. Anyone know Focus? Right, I use it. You come here, and you add all your applications that are causing you grief, and all the websites, such as Twitter and Tumblr and all of that, and then you can just focus for an hour, and it won't let you open it. It's got a hard code mode, which actually, if you kill the process, it will still not allow you to do anything. So I haven't enabled that yet. Then there's also exit distraction mode. There's also another one which is called presentation mode, which is very useful for doing presentations, except when you're doing presentations without the tool. Then it's not useful. But like if you're doing like code reviews and stuff like that, this is also useful. The thing here is that it just makes everything much, much larger. Right? You can control this font. But that's like if you're doing presentations internally in your company or externally, etc. Okay? Now, when you want to create a file, again, don't do the right-click, new, just like you wouldn't in ReSharper. Just press Command N, and from there you can create a class, you can create anything, and you can invoke that anywhere, right? You don't have to be in the actual Solution Explorer to be able to invoke that. We also have this other thing which are called scratch files, right? So normally when you create a new C# file or whatever, it becomes part of the project. But on the platform, you can also create scratch files, which allow you to just create a file that you can just play around with and then throw away afterwards. Okay? Those are called the scratch files. But it gives you all of the syntax highlighting, all of the completion and everything that you would come to expect if it were part of the project. Okay? So what else? With the resizing, again, you can even resize your project structure window without using anything of the mouse. And then you can also have kind of like a split window if you like. So I can go to Window here and Editor tabs, and I have the split window vertically. So you can now kind of like get rid of the Project Solution Explorer and then just have like a side-by-side. You have your unit tests on one side, you have your code on the other side, and you can do all of those wonderful things. And of course, you can do as many splits as you want down here. So can I hide which gutter? The gutter here? I think actually you might be able to. By the way, these are, if you put a hashtag, it allows you to dive into the settings. Okay, so editor, and then is there a gutter? Show, do you see it? Show hide gutter icons, there you go. Okay, so you can hide the gutter as well. If you, how many of you use Vim? All right, so we also have IDEA Vim, which is a plugin that we've created, which kind of simulates Vim. So you click down here, install IntelliJ plugin and IDEA Vim. And if you install that, that gives you Vim shortcuts, Vim editing, copying, pasting, etc. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You still can exit the IDE, but don't be alarmed when you like enable this and then suddenly like, what's wrong with my files? They're all read-only. I can't type, because you have to press I, obviously. Okay, just also to let you know that when you come to install a plugin in Rider, anything that says install JetBrains means we maintain it. Anything that says browse repositories means we don't maintain it. Okay, so what this means is that all of the plugins that are available as a JetBrains plugin, we make sure that it works with every release of the tool, of the platform. And with the browse repositories, those are third-party plugins. Those are the 1,800-something plugins that are available. Okay. The platform, as I said, is open source, so you can write that whatever you want on it. There. Okay. So, that. Okay. And then you've got the extend selection, shrink selection as well. So I can just like select a word here. It's context sensitive. So if I want to select now, you see it selects first the class name. Next the line, then the entire class, then the namespace. And if I were to, for example, go on a method, it would select the method name, then the entire select block. And if I want to unshrink, I can use the Alt up and Alt down, right? On the Windows, that would be Control W and Shift Control W, which on Mac is really painful because Command W closes this editor file. So we have to rename, we have to redo that so that people don't get pissed off about that. Okay. We also have the complete statement. So let's go here and open something, for instance here. So public void A, and I can just hit Shift Command Enter to do complete statement. You're familiar with complete statement, no? It's the three key shortcut to insert a semicolon. So I can do console right line or right left, and I press Shift Command Enter, and then it would insert that. Do you notice that the actual is quite fast as well? So that's actually going back and forth between the back end and front end, right? Okay. We also have kind of like multi-caret support. So you can just place carets anywhere you want and then just screw up your system as much as you want. This was one of the most demanded features by hipsters. Because they would say, like, I need to refactor code. You would be, yes, but you don't do that with copy and paste. You need to use, like, and I apply the same thing. Like, yeah, there are situations in which you would want to use multiple carets to do some refactoring. But usually use the built-in features that the tool provides you, and only in cases where it doesn't, then do that kind of refactoring. Okay? And then I can have, for example, if I have console over here, if I press Control G, that's going to select console, and it's going to select all the different consoles and provide me with multiple carets across all of those different consoles. Of course, this could be anywhere, right? So if I put that there and delete these lines, and then I come back here and I do Control G, and then Control G, that's going to place the carets on all of those words. And then I can also do Control Command G, and that will select all of the consoles in one go in that scope as well. Okay? Moving code around, again, you have the same features that you would have in ReSharper. So for instance, if I want to select a line, by the way, to select a line, go anywhere that's empty and just press up. Okay? And I can just move code up and down as well without doing copy and paste. If, of course, I want to do copy and paste, then I come here and instead of pressing V, I press Control X, which happens sometimes. Press Shift Command V, and you get your clipboard contents where you can select the one that you deleted and insert it. Okay? Cleaning up code. If you've used the code cleanup, that's also available, right? So I can, for instance, come here and move that there and move that here, and then do, for example, Alt Command L, and that does code cleanup. Okay, and styles in the code style settings, you have it. You have all of the different. You have all of the different settings that you would possibly want to style your code, which in this case are limited to tab size and indentation. So all of that is coming, and it's all there. The problem is that it doesn't have the UI, right? So for example, everything that's in dot settings on ReSharper, it will. That's another issue that we have. We need to be able to provide a format in which you can share settings across ReSharper and Rider. Right? By default, historically, on the Rider platform, all of these settings have been in a folder called .idea. On the ReSharper one, it's in a file called .settings. And so now we've got the Java side of the company arguing with the .NET side of the company, and we're going to all reach a beautiful compromise and provide you with the bestest, most awesomest, awesome sources solution at some point in time. Until then, just change your tab size. You have all of the optimized imports as well. Of course, you can just do Alt-Enter and do optimized imports as well. This is, I believe, it's also available in ReSharper in that you can actually select some code and then do format selection based on that, right? So we have this on IDEA. It's not available fully here yet, but what you can actually do is start to play with the settings contextually, and it will show you live preview of that section of the code. Or you can just say, apply the code style to this code, or clean up selection, or surround. All of these things are also available. Okay, so we've got all of the templates for surround. We've even got postfix. So for instance, watch this. I'm here, and I do var, and it does the postfix. Do you know about that, postfix templates? So that's been available in ReSharper for a long time, and then IntelliJ copied it, and then Eclipse copied it, and then NetBeans copied it. But basically, it's kind of like inserting templates, but it's afterwards. Like, I'm so fast, I don't think. And I wrote this, I need to introduce variable. Well, instead of coming here and selecting all this and then saying refactor and say introduce variable, what I can do is just do .var, and that will introduce variable for me, right? And I can do things like, for instance, action, not null, and that will say you're an idiot, because that's always true. But you get the idea, okay? Any questions? Nothing?
What's your technique for actually learning something new? I always find muscle memory of doing the same thing over and over again, that I forget the new things that
So the question is, what is my technique for learning something new, like learning the keyboard shortcuts and all of these things? What I do is I force myself to not use the mouse, right? And I kind of constantly try and remember the keyboard shortcuts. And in many applications, what you would have to do is go to the menus and then look it up and then try and remember that. So I would come here, for instance, navigate to, I don't know, jump to navigation bar. So I wouldn't click it. I would look up the keyboard and then invoke that, right? Now, with IntelliJ, you have the ability, which I was going to show you later, but Shift-Command-A, if there's one keyboard binding you need to remember, it's that one, okay? Which is a lookup of action names, okay? Shift-Command-A. So if I don't know how to do something, I just say refactor or reformat code. And it will invoke that action for me, but it will also show me the keyboard binding, okay? There's also another thing that we have here, but on this one it doesn't show you anything, which is called the productivity guide, which, believe it or not, is not a PDF. Let me show it to you in a complete version, which is in IntelliJ. So if you click on if you click on productivity, what it does is it gives you information about what features you're using, when it was used, how many times it was used, right? And then you can just click, for example, on used, and there you go, never. Okay? And then you can click, for example, oh, smart type completion, what is that? And it tells you what that is, right? So that's also a good way to kind of figure out, like, you know, what features of the product I'm using, what not. Another way is to come to talks like this. There you go. Okay. So let's go to generic arguments. And so you see that we have the what I call the resharper WTFs, which are the inspections on the side. You know that code review thing, no? Like the doors with the how many WTFs come out per door is quality of the code. So these are the inspections. All of these, again, are available, all of those 2,000 plus inspections. None of this we had to rewrite. It's all comes for free. And you get all of the Alt-Enter functionality as well. So I hit Alt-Enter here, and it says to expression body. Do you find that fast, really? Yeah, it is, right? So all of that, again, is free. And since most of these only require Alt-Enters, no additional kind of UI, they're all there. The only thing that you do require here, which aren't all there, is to actually list them. So if you go to inspections, by the way, when you're doing, when you go to preferences, don't ever sit there and like say, oh, where was that setting? Right? Don't do that. Just type it in, and it will find it for you. Okay? So inspections, you can see that I have general, and I have very few right now. There's no C# specific ones. They're all there. They've just not been surfaced to the UI. Okay, so we will surface those. And just like ReSharper, you can set the severity level. There's also structural search and replace. How many of you have used structural search and replace in ReSharper? No? It's a very, very cool feature which basically allows you to search for patterns across your code and then replace those. And not only does it allow you to do an explicit search and replace, but as soon as you enter a pattern and say that set this pattern as an inspection, then anytime that it detects that pattern, it will also highlight it, right? So it's very useful, for instance, for code smells, etc., that your team might do. Just define these patterns as custom inspections. So effectively, what you're doing is you're adding your own inspections to ReSharper without having to write it as a plugin, etc. Okay? You have that here as well. It's basically if you go search structurally, structural. Oh, we don't have it enabled yet. Okay. Yeah, we don't have it enabled yet in ReSharper, in Rider, but it will be there. Okay. Yes.
So, if you set one of those as error, can you surface that in a CI situation?
Yes. Well, with TeamCity you can, right? With TeamCity, the question is, if you set this as an error, can you surface it in a CI? Yeah. In TeamCity, we already have built-in support for all of the inspections for ReSharper and for IntelliJ, right? And then you can say, you know, if these inspections give errors, and if there's more than X amount of errors, fail the build. With ReSharper, there is also, I don't know if you're aware that we've been providing for the past several years a command line version of ReSharper that for free, that allows you to also run these inspections outside of the scope of from a command line. So you could potentially use it with other CI servers, right? But that functionality already comes built into the CI. Yeah. And it uses the settings defining what inspections you want enabled or disabled is based on your dot settings for ReSharper. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, the question is if there's a Nuget Package Explorer. Yes, there is. I'll show it a little bit later. And it's faster than Visual Studio. Which, as I always say to Martin Bala, did anyone go to Martin Bala's session the other day? where he was showing how they sorted all of the performance issues with the Nuget. I think he did a great job, to be honest. Not this session only, but what they did. I say, Rider proves that the slowness of Nuget is not your fault, because you'll see that it's pretty fast. I actually didn't test it this morning, and the internet here is crap. So maybe I should have shut up before I said all that. Okay. Regarding refactoring, so we have basically refactor this menu, and you can see that you have change signature, inline method, invert boolean, rename, save, delete, extract interface, extract superclass, extract class, which is really powerful refactoring that we have in ReSharper. And I will show you each and every one of these, except I won't because probably none of them work. Oh, there you go. Ooh, look, it does work. Extract superclass. So yeah, so basically what we're doing is all of that functionality is there, and what we've been focusing on these EAP builds is just surfacing the UIs. Okay, so last time, only 2 things worked, and now extract superclass even works. So I can select the actual methods I want to extract, and then just go next, and then cancel it. And you also have the platform also provides you with the preview, so you can actually see all of the refactorings before you actually commit those. Okay. And inspections, again, you can switch them off as soon as they become available and surface through the settings. Okay. Now, what else? Coding assistance. Let's go back to this version here. Pardon? SSIS. In terms of what? Like, I've not developed SSIS packages. What does it require? Because we have database support as well. I don't know if you're familiar with DataGrip. Have you heard of our product DataGrip? So DataGrip is a standalone IDE which has actually extracted all of the database support from IntelliJ, which basically means it allows you to do refactorings, code completion, and navigation of databases, right? So if that's what you're looking for, yes. No. That's the 16 gigabytes that comes with Visual Studio. So some other things. So for instance, let's say, now bear with me here because my C# is rusty. Isn't that, oh God, what am I doing? String, variable name. Kotlin is the other way around. So blah, blah, right? Now, how do you write JSON? You go backspace, quote, no, curly braces, no, backspace, quote, name, backspace, quote, colon, backspace, quote. Okay, never mind. What you can do is we have a feature which is called language injections, right? And what it allows you to do is here you actually can't see it because we don't have support for the JSON one, but that's coming. But what it allows you to do is to take a specific string and inject another language into it, right? Here what I have, for instance, is HTML, right? So if I do or regular expression, I can make this a regular expression, right? And then it identifies it as, for instance, a regular expression, okay? So you see, that's highlighting it as a regular expression, and then I can even do a testing of this. It will surface. I could show you this in IntelliJ. But let's say, for instance, I do HTML body, and body, and HTML, and then I say make HTML here. That will highlight it, okay? And then that would give you completion, and it would give you all of those features, right? And the one that I wanted to show you was in JSON, which I'll show you in a second here. I'll launch this one and show you, because it allows you to, it even has a JSON editor. So you can basically edit JSON without having to resort to all of those horrible little things that I was just showing you before. Okay, what else? So moving code around, we've seen postfix completion. We've seen completion. I mean, you've already seen it. I can do console, and I get smart completion. I get normal completion. There is also the surrounding code as well. So the templates I get, file templates, insert templates, insert live templates, all of those are available as well under templates. So I have live templates for HTML, C#, all of those will be coming. They're already there in other things here. Let me go to IntelliJ. Watch. If I do, now this is called var abc equals string, I can say inject language reference, JSON, right? And now I can just say edit JSON fragment, and here I can say name. You can see that as I'm typing that, it's showing it, right? So that's coming as well, okay? And that's how you can do the language references as well, okay? You don't need to actually put this here. You can eliminate that if you want.
Wouldn't that be something that's just out of the box? Like, why do they have to integrate every little feature?
It's mostly about time. So yes, it is out of the box, but so all of this is on the platform. All of these features are on the platform, right? But they're not enabled in all scenarios for all purposes. So it's mostly a matter of just doing, enabling that. The other, a specific issue that we have with ReSharper, which I'll mention quickly, is that ReSharper, because it's been .NET, right? We've had our own parsers for JavaScript, CSS, HTML, etc. But now, of course, coming to IntelliJ platform, that also provides it, right? So we're trying to find the best way also to kind of surface that and see which ones we choose. So some of these language injections that you see, what's actually going behind the scenes there is it is using the parsers for JavaScript and for JSON, right? So it is also a matter of getting that enabled, okay? Yes, question.
I know we are Mac now, but does it know anything about PowerShell at all?
About what?
PowerShell.
PowerShell.
Yeah, if it's on Windows, like,
I believe, I'm not sure, I believe that there might actually be a PowerShell plugin. Or maybe not. No, there isn't. Or someone was talking about creating one. No, there isn't then.
in terms of JSON, does it integrate with, sorry. If you're writing something like CloudFormation templates or, I don't know, Azure ARM templates, does it know like any specifics? Does it have any IntelliSense? Is there any plugins around that? Like, does it give me anything in this space? Because it's very painful in Visual Studio.
Yeah. So if it is a technology that we're supporting in ReSharper, then it will give it to you, right? If it isn't, it won't.
Okay.
So for example, we support XAML. We support certain stuff from Unity. So all of these things, yes, you will have it, right? If we don't support something specific to Azure, no, then you won't have that functionality, right? But what is like really important to note here, and I want to insist on this, is that, you know, we are sharing all of that code base with ReSharper, right? And that's important because when like people are now kind of worried, like, are you going to stop developing ReSharper? Far from it, because every feature that we add to ReSharper, we get people to use it in Visual Studio and we get it in Rider. This needs ReSharper. Plus JetBrains needs ReSharper because it's one of our best-selling products, right? So, you know, we're not abandoning one for the other, right? We're just trying to give you a different experience, but in terms of feature-wise, feature parity, it's going to be pretty much the same, right?
What about .NET Core?
Yeah, that's already there. Well, it's there on RC1, not RC 1.5. RC2 changed slightly. RC3 is dead. RC4, I don't know what's going to happen. We will support it properly when Microsoft supports it properly.
Okay, what about the Nuget packages and all that stuff in
That's
JS?
already there.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll
cool,
show that in
sweet.
a minute. Okay. So some other things. Let's go, for instance. Let's go back to Rider, not IntelliJ. Some other things. Let's go and do Game of Life. Okay, this is Game of Life. See how fast it loaded? And I can come here and I can set a breakpoint. Right, and let me show Gutter. Never And I can say debug. And I have debugger. And I have all of the evaluation of the arguments, everything that you could possibly think of. It's all there, okay? Right? So fully integrated debuggers, drop stacks, everything that you would come to expect from a debugger is working. That's for MS Build. Notice that everything that I've shown you right now is for MS Build projects. Yes, question?
Thank you. Could you also connect it to a process for debugging? Like
yeah, attached to process?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, if we can debug, we can also run as well, right? So we can run as well and etc.
What about edit and continue?
Not yet.
Not yet, but it will be.
But you normally shouldn't do that. You should unit test.
That's how I write my code, man.
Just in case those that are going to listen to the recording didn't hear that well, the gentleman was asking for edit and continue, and that's how he writes his code, mate. So, right, creating a new project. We have an empty project, which is actually, believe it or not, empty, as opposed to some other tools. So when you say create an empty project, it does create an empty project. Not pointing any fingers, I'm just saying. Console application, class library, so I can say create, and you see how fast it is. I mean, it's like very, very fast. And I can just come here and run console, write line, hello, it's me. And breakpoint as well, or just run this. And then you can define, we have these things called run configurations, which basically allow you to run the same applications using different configuration parameters. We've made it so that you can just hit run and it will create an automatic one for you. So you can see the output here. You can actually define the tool sets that you use. So, everything around system toolset, if you want to use a custom toolset, moving to MS Build. If you're on Windows, obviously, it's going to use the .NET framework. If you are on Linux, OS X, it's going to use Mono. Eventually, once Microsoft and Xamarin get their act together and ship one solution, which will be .NET Core, so around about 2028, we will switch over to that. Okay. Regarding support for .NET Core, yes, it's here. Which one is here? Whatever was there before they decided to change the tool set again. Load failed, but it works really well. Other than that, it's really fast. So let me show you another example here. Cake. Okay, you all know Cake? Cake is C# make. Because what else could you call something that's Cake? And we have unit testing. So I can just come here and say, run unit tests. So you have XUnit, NUnit, all of these available already, right? So running the unit tests. Okay. Nuget Explorer. So right now, when you open a solution that has Nuget, it already goes and fetches everything. Okay. So it does Nuget restore. And then Nuget, here is our Nuget package. Let's minimize that. And no, I said minimize. Go away. Okay, let this all run, and then we'll. It's quite fast as well. So you can expand all of these and see, all of the outputs, etc. Okay. Right now, if you come here, you can see all of the packages that are installed for Nuget. I can do search, for example, easy HTTP. Now take into account that this is the internet, right? And I can do right-click, and I could do install, select the version, etc. Okay? So all of the Nuget functionality is also there. Pardon? Do you want to use the command line?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that you can use the command line.
Same terminal, is that different for Nuget packages?
No, you can do it in any terminal. I mean, the command line Nuget support is what's provided by the Mono, the OS X, Windows, Microsoft, whatever, right? I don't know how much command line support they actually have on the OS X, but it is fast. Did you notice that was fast or not? Yes, it was brilliant. Yes, question.
Just wondering,
if there's any sort of support for remote debugging. So like to a process running on, say, another
Yes.
machine on your network, yeah.
Okay, what else is there? There's a terminal window. We have a REST client, which isn't, test RESTful service is already here. Brilliant. So this is the ability to basically test an endpoint, an HTTP endpoint, or as some hipsters like to call it, a RESTful API. So you can do get, post, put, delete, anything you want. So if you're familiar, for example, with Postman from Chrome, this is basically the same thing, right? And you can upload certificate, you can upload files, you can upload text, whatever you want. Okay? Because all of that is also included. You know, we have a VCS. I can do commits, import into VCS. I have perforce support, Git support, Subversion, Mercurial. Yes, there's also support for TFS. And Visual Source Safe, there isn't. Anyone use it? Recommended for teams of less than one person, remember that? And then, of course, we have all of the other stuff like JavaScript, HTML, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, for example, if I open an MVC application, which one? This one. Notice that I get all of those goodies that I have in ReSharper as well. So I can go to View, Command B, navigate to the view, right? Inside the view, I have View Bag, and I have Completion as well, right? And this is Razor combined with C Sharp and combined with HTML, combined with everything, right? And I can also debug, run and debug applications, MVC applications. Okay, so for instance, the shared, I have the layout here, and I have the action links. So if I delete that, you can see that I get code completion for all my controllers and navigate to the actual action back and forth, right? All of that, again, because we're sharing the same code base with ReSharper. And as of the VCS I also told you, then you have other things like, for example, external tools, which allow you to basically log. This is ones that I provided myself while I was waiting for unit testing, which basically I defined a call out to an external application and then getting back the results inside the actual IDE. And analyze stack trace, scratch files, as I said, IDE scripting console, pretty much what you would come to expect from a full IDE. Okay? Right. So with that, kind of gives you a general idea of what is available already, and then again some useful tips and tricks, hopefully, of what you should do when you're working with this. Just remember the Shift Command A, which allows you to basically look up something if you don't know it, and the double shift, which is the search everywhere, and then the productivity guide, which in this case you shouldn't be using because it's only two things. Any questions? Any general questions around Rider?
That HTTP thingy, Postman, does it store the collection so you can have a list of things in there and sort of part of the project?
Yes.
Sensational.
So some other general information. When is our release date? We were initially aiming for sometime at the end of around autumn. Now we might be looking at sometime early 2017. That's why we don't like giving dates, because, hey, you know, we're very agile in that sense. And then what else? Price range. We're looking at something along the same lines as what we already provide. Well, that's a very ambiguous way of saying it. No. Here's the thing. Here's what I can tell you pretty much is that how many of you are familiar with the JetBrains Toolbox package, which basically means that you pay like, I'm talking individual licenses, something like $300 a year, and you get access to all of our IDEs and all of our .NET tools. Right? So ReSharper, Ultimate, which includes .cover, all of these things. It will be part of that. Right? So that gives you a general idea that it won't ever be more expensive than all of the tools. Right? What will it be exactly? We don't know. Will it be, obviously, we will probably provide options of things like, you know, I'm a ReSharper Ultimate user that also wants to use Rider. Is there availability for me like that? Yes. Or I want to just convert and use Rider. Can I do that? Probably will offer all of these different options. But we're generally talking in the price range of, like, you know, same as what ReSharper is and same as what IntelliJ Ultimate is for the, I'm talking right now individual prices, which, as you know, are heavily discounted over our official business licenses. And in case you're not familiar, business doesn't mean that you can't use the individual licenses for business purposes and commercial. You absolutely can. The difference is that one is purchased in a single person's name, whereas the business license is unnamed. So if you have 4 people working at the company, you can purchase 4 licenses, and any of those 4 people can use it. Whereas personal licenses is to the individual. So, okay? And that's it. You can actually now sign up for the EAP. It's EAP 7. We're going to continue with a few more private EAPs, but we'll soon go public EAP. And then that will be open up to everyone. And yeah, and I mean, I'm still here for another few hours at the booth. So if you do have any other questions, feel free to find me. Okay? Thank you.